Hey everybody. So I'm doing a video today about basically what we were talking about on Twitter recently in a big thread that was spurred by an author asking what is an agent? What actually entails that? What goes into it? So today I'm going to kind of break it down into different sections and try to give you the most clear thought on what it is we actually do and how that kind of comes to be, how you can become one, all of that stuff. So, first thing I want to talk about is going to be how does one become an agent, first and foremost. And you technically don't have to have a degree, you don't have to have all this schooling. Again, keep in mind all of my perspective in this video is going to be in a US standpoint and from my own experience. This is not going to be what happens in the UK and other countries that do this. And other agencies may have agents with different perspectives. So please keep that in mind. And apparently my dog is going to whine and want to be part of this all the time. So be prepared for this right here. So how do you become an agent? For me personally, I did internships in college. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to be an editor or an agent or anything like that, or if I just wanted to be a writer. So to me, it always starts off with an internship. Because you're going to learn what agents do, what an actual job entails, what responsibilities you might have, and what maybe you may need school-wise if you decide to go for that. So maybe there are some things you'd like to take in school that may help you on that journey. So I did internships, and then I got promoted up. And so sometimes what happens is you can get promoted in-house from where you were at the internship. Sometimes internship will give you a recommendation letter and you'll go on to a different agency and hopefully get promoted from there. There's a lot of different tactics. And every agency, unfortunately, has a different ladder to climb. So some go intern, apprentice, junior agent, agent. Some go intern, apprentice, agent, senior agent. Some go intern, junior agent, agent. There's like different steps. So when you're looking at certain agencies, keep that in mind. But so I was promoted from intern up to apprentice and then junior agent. And then I moved agencies and I became an agent. And technically, yes, I'm part of like the senior agents list. But we don't really call it that. We just call it agents. So that's usually how you get started. You know, you're going to be doing the internships. You're going to be learning. And I will preface this, and a lot of those internships are unpaid. And because agencies don't make a ton of money. Like, we're not here raking in big bucks, all this kind of stuff, big blockbuster deals. Most places can't afford it. So when you do look at internships, when you're considering thinking about stuff like this, I say that agencies should at least be offering school credit or a mentorship rather than just an internship. Mentorship means that as you're interning, you're not just getting thrown busy work. You're not just reading queries or reading manuscripts, and that's that. Because that's all you're learning. You should also be possibly sitting in on team meetings, so learning what agencies are discussing, what problems arise. You should be sitting in on reading contracts so that you can learn what actually happens with that. You potentially could be sitting in on offer calls so that you learn what an agent does when they are talking to an author and wanting to offer to them. Maybe offer calls when it's like the publisher with your writer, but that's a little more private, so maybe not be sitting in on that. Learning how to write pitch letters to editors and potentially learning how to network or seeing the databases that we save all of our contact information in. That's what I mean by internship, like mentorship. If you're not getting paid, you should at least be getting all of that. If you're just there to read queries or read manuscripts, it's busy work, and I feel like you should be paid for that because you're just labor at that point. You're not actually learning fundamental things about agenting. You're learning what everybody knows agents do kind of at that point. So that's my opinion. And so that's kind of what you would want to go into an internship perspective learning. You can get paid for some of them, so obviously go and try to find those if possible, because those are great. Everybody deserves to be paid for their work in some way. But so most agents are considered independent contractors or freelance. So we're not considered employees of the group, which means most of the time we're not getting health care from them. We're not getting tax benefits. We're not getting taxes taken out, meaning you have to pay your taxes either quarterly or when tax time comes, which is a lot of money. So that's something a lot of people don't know about agents. They think we're actually employed like W-9 people. We're not. We're usually 1099s for taxes, and We are independent contractors, not full employees. And this is also kind of why most people don't realize a lot of agents don't have just this job. We have multiple jobs. So I have freelance editing as well as agenting, but when I was in, the beginning stages of agenting, I was at school technically. I was doing freelance editing. I also worked a job outside of agenting. I believe I had another job in there somewhere, an internship. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. There are some agencies, however, that do employ agents full time, and that is a different story. Some agents can still survive then because they're getting a salary instead of, what we're going to talk about in pay in a minute. They are getting paid constantly because they are seen as employees. They are not freelance consultants or anything like that. So if you're part of an agency that gives you a salary like that, you may not need to take on the second job, but again, that depends on the agency, depends what money you're making, etc., etc. And I wanted to talk about a day in the life before we get to what pay is, what agents, how they get their money and all of that. I wanted to kind of do a day in the life of an agent. Everybody structures it differently because as independent contractors, a lot of us can kind of pick and choose how we are going to segment our day. So if we have a second job, maybe we're going to use the morning shift, and that's what our job is. And then night shift is agenting, or vice versa, all that stuff. So like for me, usually my morning is answering emails because we get a ton of emails. Either they're from our clients, they're from publishers we're working with, they're from publishers and editors that we sent manuscripts to recently, they're from our bosses, they're from other agents we're talking to, like all of this different stuff. They're from contracts departments. So for me, my morning is usually sitting down with my coffee and going through all of my email. Back and forth, what is fire, what is needing to be taken care of right now, what is going on. After that, normally, I usually am doing my second job, which is freelance editing, because that's how I pay my bills. So normally, I'm doing any projects that I have needing to do for that, even if they're due that day or if they're on a deadline, all that stuff. I'm editing for that. After that, I am doing my agenting editing, client editing, where I'm reading my clients' manuscripts and sending them edits, or I'm reading submissions from the query box. Not queries, submissions from the query box where I've already asked you for your manuscript. I'm reading those or editing those. Not editing those, but you know what I mean. Now, this is the point where it's probably gotten around dinner time. Sometimes in the mornings I will do email, when I'm doing my email times, that's when I'm also sending out submissions for my clients, sending out them to editors, trying to pitch them to somebody, talking to editors about what they're on the lookout for, a wish list. We're also doing phone calls all through this time, or video chats like this, to talk to editors personally, get to know them, hopefully put names to faces, or having meetings about contracts, meetings about editorial, all of that kind of stuff. So a lot of the time, a big chunk, at least, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. for an agent sometimes can be taken up just by emails and phone calls or video calls. And then sometimes wiggle in a little bit of editing in that part. By the time we get to dinner, so let's say 6, 7 o'clock, that's normally when you're done for the day, right? Well, a lot of agents, that's when we start getting into the query box. I usually try to do one day a week where I sit down for 2 to 3 hours straight and I just do queries. Hi, honey. Where I just do queries straight. Because for me, that's the most logical. It takes up less time overall, and I only have one day a week where I'm kind of focusing straight on that. Others, they take like an hour every day, potentially. But the thing is, usually once it hits dinner and now it's our personal time, it's very similar to what happens with editors in publishing houses. Our personal time becomes now we read submissions or now we read queries to find new stuff, because this is the only time of the day we have it. And that means also sometimes we don't take days off. Some nights, normally I try to take 2 days off a week because my partner has 2 days off of work. But sometimes if that day off is like, hey, it's football day or something, well, I'm probably going to be reading for work. I'm going to be doing some work manuscript-wise so that I can get my reading done. So I did want to clarify that a lot of what agents are doing, we're doing on our free time. And all of the work I just told you about, emails, phone calls, video calls, editing, manuscripts, reading manuscripts, we have not seen a single cent for all of that work. Everything we do in that day is not paid. We don't have an hourly wage. We don't have salary. There are some houses that do salary. Most of the U.S.-based agents, I'm going to say that because U.S.-based, I've heard differently for U.K., are working off of commission, which means we don't make any money until the author makes money. So if I sell my client and say I sell them like it's a $10,000 advance, once we sign the contract, and then usually there's a 30-day buffer of like your check will get to you in 30 days. The agency itself gets 15%. That's the usual percentage, I'm going to say. I know there's some here and there differences, but 15 is industry standard. That's what the agency as a whole takes out of that payment. The agent themselves will have a different agreement with their agency. They will get a percentage of the percentage. So that could be anything. It could be out of that 15%, they get half, or out of that 15%, they get 8%, 10%. You don't know because it's based on the negotiation deal they have with their own agency. Very rarely is an agent going to get that entire percentage. And the reason for that, I saw some questions in there saying, well, if the agency isn't employing you as a full employee and they're not selling your book and you're doing all that work, why is the agency taking a cut out of your percentage? This is because the agency has established the name, the brand of the company that your name is under. Your recognition as an agent is under them. They're maintaining the website for everybody. They're also maintaining networking half the time. Say they have an Airtable subscription where we can literally make spreadsheets of all editors, all manuscript wish lists we all get, and we can compile it all together, and that's our database chunk where we can go in and research for who we're going to send stuff to, what we have sold to before. That costs money. It also means that they also sometimes pay for you to take certain courses. So my agency actually sent me I did a video, a virtual class about graphic novels when I first started acquiring graphic novels because I wanted to make sure I knew about the industry, I knew what was marketable, I knew how to better market a graphic novel, I knew the pay scale a little bit on it. So they paid for me to take a course on that. And that's a good agency when they will be able to do that because they're expanding your knowledge. But so that percentage the agency takes out is covering all of those bases. And not to mention when the agency wants to send somebody to like Frankfurt when we do the big book fair or the London book fair or something like that. Those kinds of things aren't always paid for. So sometimes the agency will cover it for an agent to go to that. So the agency does need money to also function on. It doesn't just run off of agents selling stuff. It runs off of the income coming in from those selling things for them. So that's kind of where I wasn't super I didn't like the attitude coming towards that why is the agency taking anything from you? Well, they are providing some if they're a good, ethical, good, reliable agency, I will say. They also sometimes pay you extra money for if you're taking on extra work. So say for me, I maintain a lot of this social media for Belcastro and that. So whenever we do different projects, I'll get a fee or something like that for work I've been doing, or I'll get a raise for something. So the agency covers you for that kind of stuff. So the agency is earning that percentage that they take out of my percentage. Same with other agents. I hope so anyway, the agencies you're at. So it's different for everybody, but the money the agency is taking from an agent is earned. But so going back to that, commission-based. There is also the thing of payment in publishing is not a lump sum, here you go, now we're done, now we're just doing focus on work. Publishing houses have created the installment list of how you get paid. So say take that $10,000 advance I talked about. Well, now it's going to be split into 2 or 3 payments, meaning the first one is within 30 days of signing the contract. So you get a chunk of it. So let's just say it's a 3-payment structure, which is pretty common. Hold on. This is why I'm in words and not math because, yeah, my printer just went off. So it's a $10,000 installment. So divided by 3. We're just going to round. I'm not going to do all the pennies and dimes and stuff. So the first payment's going to be around $3,300. So now take that $3,300, and now you're going to take out the 15%. So that means the agency, out of $3,300, is getting $495. And I'm only getting a percentage of that $495. I'm not getting that full $495. So your second payment of this money, that $3,300, will not come back to you, and it's dependent on the contract. The contract will state in terms when you get your payments. And a lot of the times the language is going to be something like, upon delivery and approval of final manuscript, which means you don't actually know when you're getting this second payment. You're doing edits with your editor, you're working through things, you send one, and then they'll let you know, okay, I think like this is ready. I think we've completed edits. We're good. I'm going to put in for the acceptance. That could be a year from now. That could be 8 months from now. That could be 15 months from now. You don't know how long it's going to be for that second payment, which means me as an agent, I have no idea how long it's going to be till I get that chunk of the $495, as in $495. I don't know when I'm going to get my percentage of that number either. And that's, again, why I tell all my authors, don't just like go blow your advance or anything like that. You're definitely going to have to save it or spend some of it and put some of it in savings for tax purposes, all that stuff. And then the third payment is not going to come to you until, most likely, it'll say day of publication, meaning the day your book comes out. There'll always be a 30-day buffer because that's how long sometimes it takes for either direct deposit or technically payments to go through the company's program or development people. I can't think today. So whoever does the money stuff in the publishing house right now, I know I'm ridiculous right now. There's always a 30-day buffer because they're doing everybody else's payments at the same time. So they're making sure they have a buffer to make sure it gets to you within a reasonable amount of time, but they're not going to be able to get it to you like the day of or the next day, especially if they're still sending out paper checks. So that money doesn't all come to you at once. It comes out super spaced out. So if I only sell one book a year and it's a $10,000 advance, well, I obviously can't live on that. Like, nobody can live on that. That's like not even rent. So when you think about how an agent's being paid, that's why we have to try to make as many sales as possible, because we need to be getting paid back to back to back, or every couple months get that paycheck in that's going to be sustaining our lifestyles or just paying bills in general. So payment works like that. It's not crystal clear when you're getting your money. It's not crystal clear how much of it is taken out depending on the agent and where they are, because they all have different agreements on who gets what percentages. And we also have to think of conferences. So some income does come from when an agent goes to a conference or does an event like a critique fest or something like that. And that's why people charge attendees at conferences. I hate to say how much that is because I still think some of those prices are astronomical. But that's how we make our money too, is we go to conferences, and most of us are now refusing to go to conferences that don't pay us because it's taking time out of our day. And obviously, as you just saw, time is money for us. If I'm not home reading submissions or getting new submissions out to editors because I'm at a conference that's not paying me, I could very well be losing out on a sale or losing money by the second. So most of the time what we're looking for as agents is a conference that covers our room and board, so a hotel room for 1 or 2 nights. They cover our flight to and from the place because flights are friggin' expensive. Most of the time they cover food, but not all the time. That's not always a deal breaker. And then some kind of honorarium. Like, okay, pay us for our time. And that can be anything. And it's up to the agent to accept or not. It can be as low as $100. It can be up to like whatever they say. But we do conferences a lot of times because that's how we make more income. That's how we can make some more supplemental income so we can pay the bills and keep agenting and doing what we're doing. That also goes for, online events you've seen, pitches for things like Writer's Digest. They have a conference online sometimes, or writing day workshops, all that kind of stuff. So those are another way that an agent can get money. And like I said, there's also ways to get agents money by doing other projects for their agency. So, running an event for the agency or putting in extra time to work with the interns so they can get paid for doing intern work with them, training purposes and stuff like that. Or they can be running social media on the site, or they can be acting as a contracts manager as well as an agent so that they can be getting some extra money from the agency. A lot of different things. But the clear part is that it's not easy to be paid as an agent. It is not easy to make money. And you have to remember that in agenting, when you start as an intern, you're not getting paid most of the time. When you get up to apprentice, it varies. You can be getting some money by being mentored by an older agent. So then when you work with them on a project, you get a percentage of that project as well because you helped sell it. However, keep remembering that's also taken out of my money if my apprentice is taking out of my money, and the agency's taking out of my money. So there's a lot of movement of money. It's very hard to keep things moving smoothly, which is why this goes into why agents do their lists certain ways. We want to find breakout novels. We want to find new and unique and great voices and things that we think are amazing and have never been told before. But we also have to think about, okay, I can't eat if I don't have books on my list I know I can sell. So we can love something and just know, like, I don't know if this will sell. And do I have the parameters right now to risk that? Because, like, if you've had a not great year selling books, like, say, when the pandemic happened, we couldn't take as many risks on it because we may have loved it to death, but we didn't make any money that year. So could we really add someone to our list who's going to take a ton of time up on our hands and potentially never sell their book and never make any money? So that kind of clarifies how agents run. That is a deciding factor in our inboxes. We have to also believe we can sell something. And I have books that I've believed wholeheartedly I was going to sell and I haven't sold. So it's always an uncertainty. I want to go back now, though, and talk about agencies who do salaries. Because there are some, and normally in the U.S., they are the bigger ones, like Writers House and stuff like that, I think. Don't be mad if I was wrong there. But if they have salary, normally that means the agent is giving up that commission completely. They get a salary, but that means they are also beholden to sell a certain amount of books every year. When they do performance reviews at the end of the year, if that agent hasn't reached quota or something like that, their salary may now suffer because they don't have that commission anymore. It's salary, and you have to prove that you are worth salary. So there's pros and cons to everything. Some agents would prefer the salary. Some agents would prefer the commission. It's really different for a lot of people. But I hope that kind of clarifies why agents can be the way they are sometimes when it comes to doing stuff. Because I have had questions too, why agents are doing form rejections, why aren't they giving us more feedback, or why are there some agents who never reply? I can't answer the no reply one at all. I personally don't do that. But the form rejections I can answer to, because sometimes we just don't have time. If we have 500 queries in our inbox and we need to find a new book, or we just, it's been really hard to get through these queries, we need to go through quickly, unless I can specifically see something and be like, I can give them feedback on this. I can immediately see something here, so let me give them feedback. But if it's just something generic, like, this concept wasn't really something I would have picked up in the bookstore anyway, and if I didn't enjoy it, like in a bookstore, I probably wouldn't agent it, because if I can't enjoy it, I can't edit you very well. Sometimes it's just a fast, like, this isn't a genre I want right now. Your word count's wrong. Or it's just, it didn't get me. And I know it sucks, but, like, do you want me to send you a form rejection just being like, I'm sorry, this isn't for me? Or do you want me to send you a rejection saying, hey, I really didn't like the voice in this. I don't like any of this. Bye. Like, I would never say it like that, obviously. But it can be read as that sometimes when we do stuff like that. So form rejections can not only just get us faster through your query box so that you're not waiting months and months and months for us, it can also help us when we don't really have any feedback to give to you. So we're not fabricating something just to say, hey, I gave you feedback, here it is. We're just being like, it's not for me, I'm sorry, have a great time. Like, go find someone who loves it. Go find someone who is right for them. So I think with form rejections, you have to take a grain of salt. You have to be like, okay, it just wasn't for them. If it was in a bookstore, they just wouldn't have picked it up. Or you have to think on it as, okay, they're probably slammed and they really needed to get through a bunch of queries today, so they really just had to do form rejections. Because I'm a person who, I don't like form rejections. I don't prefer sending them, but there are days where I have to send a lot of them because I don't have time. Like, if I'm going to be doing 3 to 4 hours of queries, and I want to, like, preface this, I just opened up to queries again just a little bit ago, and I already have had, like, 400 queries. Like, not even a month open, guys. Not even, like, 2-3 weeks open. So that's kind of what happens in our boxes, and that's why you can get form responses instead of strict feedback, because sometimes we just have to keep going. And that may also be why sometimes you don't get a response, because they have so many queries, or they have so many clients that's where your loyalty is first, because you've already signed them, you've already started a working relationship with them. You're going to focus on your list first before you go back into the query trenches. So that could be why it's happening. It's not personal. It's, like, never personal. It's just, we also are not making money unless we are literally just sprinting every 2 seconds of every day. I can do a whole nother video on signs that like agents aren't doing what they should be doing, which maybe that'll come out one day. But basically, agents are trying to do many spinning plates. We are trying to work on our clients, send them to editors, edit their new or read their new stuff, brainstorm with them on pitching, also make sure their contracts are correct, also make sure that they're being treated well by their publisher or their marketing or their publicity people, all of that stuff. Also brainstorm with them on publicity and marketing stuff they can do themselves. Also working on them with their social media, and that's one client. I have to do that for every client I have almost. Some are, better at it than others. Everyone has their strengths, everyone has their weaknesses. And then we also have to be doing the query box and new potential people and reading new potential things. And then we're also doing the contracts. And then we're also potentially running things for our agency. And then we're also having 2 or 3 other jobs. So it's a lot. And I'm not going to sit here and like say, put agents on a pedestal, boo-hoo, sad us. I'm not saying that because, despite even if we have a mountain of work, it doesn't excuse any agent from being rude, from being lackadaisical, from being bullying or harassing or anything like that. Obviously, no agent is allowed to do that just because their job's not easy. But I do hope it gives a little more clarity to what agents are thinking when we're working, when we're looking at your book, when we're looking at your materials, what is going through our heads, why we're doing the choices we're doing, and what it means going into agenting. Because I do know that a lot of you have questioned why so many agents sometimes burn out, why so many agents don't stay in the agency that long or in the industry itself, and same with editors happening right now. And this is usually why, because it is an industry that doesn't value personal free time. There's a lot of work to do and not a lot of time to do it, which is also why I think a lot of agents now have been taking that personal time to close their query boxes when they have so much work to do. And that's probably going to be in the very busy months where they've got a ton of publishers deals going on. The clients have sent them a bunch of manuscripts. There's always some point of the year where 2 to 3 months, everything's happening very quickly for the industry. And that's the month sometimes when we close queries because we don't have time to do it and we don't want you to sit there for like ever waiting on us. Because nobody likes to wait. So I know I probably missed a bunch of stuff. It's like so many things to think about, so many things to remember. But that's why I want you, if you have questions about what an agent does, I have other videos I've done before about, what an agent's supposed to do for you if you're their client, all that kind of stuff, what you should expect from the relationship. So that's a different matter. I have other videos on that. But if there's something specifically about, that you don't understand about agenting in general, about what an agent does or what it's like to be in that job, put it in the comments. It notifies me every time you put a comment in. I will answer your questions. Bel Castro will answer your questions. But I hope it kind of clarifies the moving parts and how the industry maneuvers around agents, what their part is in it, because we throw a lot of terms out about a lot of different placements in the industry, who does what, who gets to say what, who gets to hold others back. And there's a lot of nuance in it, obviously. There's a lot of nuance for writers, too. So I just wanted to post this and kind of clarify what's going on with a lot of agents, what happens with it, what we do on a daily basis. And if I missed something, just put a comment in below. I'm happy to expand. We're going to be hopefully doing a lot more videos with other agencies and agents as well. So I always love to just kind of give you guys an insider tip on what this industry's like, since we don't, it's hard to know if you're an author, what's going on the other side. So again, put those comments in there, and I will see you next time for the next video. Thanks for stopping by.